What's up, everyone? Leon Barnes here with the Collective Genius. Excited to be back with you after a couple of weeks away. We had our great March event for our CG Premier Group in Scottsdale, which was an absolute smash. And I followed that up with a nice little spring break, which with my family to the north into winter, which was awesome. And it's so feeling refreshed. And I was inspired to get back on the social media side today because I had a full week, first week back from spring break, and obviously a lot going on. But I wanted to share with you the power of the CG community. Some of you may know or may not know, we have two different communities now. CG Premier, which is for the elite investor, that individual that's doing 75 plus transactions or 75 plus doors on an annual basis and above. That is the person that is the cream of the crop, 160 members strong on that side. That's a group that meets 4 times a year, twice in Scottsdale this year and twice here in Clearwater in Florida. The second group that we have that some of you may not know is CG Select. That is a group that we started in January. It's for that full-time real estate investor that maybe they don't have a business, a high-level business yet. They're 1 to 3 employees, but they're anywhere between 30 and 70 transactions on an annual basis. And they just need help building their systems, their processes, their team. So what's ironic, and the reason I did this call, I wanted to do this social media feed today is the biggest reason was because both aligned up perfectly my first week back. And here's how that happened. So every week we do a weekly call for CG Select. It's on 4 pillars of the business, and the number one pillar of the business that across the board that real estate investors really need help with, and it's the number one challenge I see on applications that come through for CG. The number one issue is hiring, scaling through people. That's a struggle for most people. When you are grinding and starting a business like most of our select team, you don't have that figured out yet of hiring and managing people. So we do a monthly call for our CG Select on that particular pillar of systems, processes, and hiring. As you can see in the background there, Austin McCurdy, Gary Harper, and Sharper Business Solutions, they host that call on a monthly basis. And, the call started this week with hiring employees as simple as an investment on what you expect to return. If you're not looking at it that way, then that's a good place to start. So the reason that I shared this screen here with Select first was because that is just starting out is just getting to the point of hiring an individual obviously is tough, right? There are what Austin covered here, and it's really impressive. What he hired are the three times in which you would be ready when to hire someone. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a little a sneak peek of what you would be getting on a monthly basis if you're a Select member. So in this presentation, again, we do these calls weekly on 4 pillars of the business. This week just happened to be systems, processes, scale through people. So the number one reason that you would hire or look to hire an individual is when you're turning down work. It's not always applicable to real estate investors, but it is from the standpoint if you're not getting out to all of the appointments that your lead managers or you are setting because you just don't have enough time or resources. Second is when you've identified new sources of potential revenue streams, which we see quite often. And number 3, get to it here in 1 second. Come on up here now. Number 3 is when your customers are complaining. So it may seem elementary to some, but to those that have zero, maybe management or corporate experience to rely on, most real estate investors need help with this. So again, the reason for this social media feed today was number 1 is to talk about, what we do here in the CG community. But number 2, show you how both of the groups, whether it's the Premier side or the Select side, each have their own individual challenges with hiring. So our focus call this week was on hiring and when to hire for Select. We did not have a call scheduled for CG Premier this week. We do monthly calls on that side as well, in between our quarterly meetings. Select meets 3 times a year, and CG Premier meets 4 times a year. So in between, our private Facebook group, 10 to 15 posts on on a daily basis. And sometimes those turn into threads that turn into calls. We had an impromptu call this week on Wednesday, and that call was about high performance of employees, specifically acquisitions. So this is relatable to both sides, but you can tell that each have hiring and management concerns and want to continue to sharpen that saw and get better at that. I want to share this piece of that call with you, just this piece, because I feel like it was the biggest takeaway of that call and just a game changer for most real estate investors in the way they think in regards to hiring an acquisitions person. So let me give you a little bit more background on this particular call and how it started. So we had one COO within the group that started a chain of saying, hey, what is the best predictive index? If you're not familiar with PI, you should become familiar with it. Just think of it as DISC. If you're familiar with that personality profile, just think of it as on steroids. So one of our leadership team members, Eric Brewer, who was a part of this call and was a part of that original discussion that led to this call. We had 0 calls planned for this week, and we scheduled this just because of a Facebook thread started within the community. We ended up having 60 people, I think, on this call contributing and saying, how do I hire better acquisitions people? I think everyone could use a call like that, whether you have 1, 3, 5, 10 acquisitions people in your particular market. So Eric changed the script, flipped the script, if you will. Most people are looking for mavericks. If you know PI, that will resonate. If you don't know PI, get to know it. So most people are looking for mavericks, people that are high-performing salespeople. That's typically the particular personality behavior that particular type. Eric is going more for a specialist, and here's why he's flipped it. His focus is on sales process. Let me say that again. His focus for his particular market as a leadership team member, someone that does 400 plus transactions, the guy's got a lot of things going on, so he knows how to hire, but he helps his whole process, or he helps all of that through defining his processes on every level, and it's no different than acquisitions, the most important position within your organization. So he looks at specialists, specifically people that can take a process and rinse and repeat. A good process, mind you, which led to the next conversation of Steve Trang and a few others, Jeremy Heath, within the group, actually sharing their sales processes, and everyone started to work on that piece of the business rather than focusing on, do I have the right candidate, and maybe a maverick that comes in, crushes it for a couple of years, but then leaves thereafter, right? Maybe a year, 2 years, maybe 3, on to greener pastures. I'm sure some of you could raise your hand that you've had that, where you've hired an individual that's come in and just been a rock star, but could not sustain that over a long period of time and moved on. So Eric's focus, and it resonated with the entire group, is focusing more on your sales process. Get people in that can absorb that process, continue to improve on that process, make it better, but at the same time are okay with learning that process and perfecting it to the highest level. So the number one issue that Premier members have, as well as Select members, is typically what? It's hiring. And then from there, it's how do I hire better people? How do I continue to manage them at the highest level? There were so many additional details on these calls that obviously I don't have time for today, but I just wanted to give these golden nuggets, as I call them, from both Eric as well as Austin and everyone else that was involved in these calls. So whether you are Select type of real estate investor, someone that's doing between 25 and 70 deals, or you're doing 70 plus transactions a year, or have 70 plus doors, would love to talk to you. I think these are all beneficial calls, whether you're doing them on a weekly basis, you're watching them live, you're watching them on our portal. There's a lot of good stuff here. And it's a great part of it's the piece of this that I love the most, is being a part of a community that is willing to share, get on calls, and make each other better. You are who you surround yourself with, and I'm a much better person, and so are our members because of who they surround themselves with. So if you're interested in learning more, head over to our website, learnmoreaboutcg.com. That's learnmoreaboutcg.com. It's great to be back, great to be with you. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.